This year, it seems like all the movies that have gone kind of popular, made $1 billion, has been with a core theme of being lonely and isolated. And that's just how 2026 is now. I won't spoil any major plot points, but Project Hail Mary was exactly about that. Spider-Man is really about the dangers of being alone. And that's already been revealed in the press. Avatar Aang explores a similar theme on the cultural scale of being alone without your people. Odyssey shows the consequences of loneliness and missing your home and family. I could probably go on and on. And I think all of these are my personal certified bangers. It has been a really fantastic year for movies. I think it pretty clearly reflects what kind of problems have been plaguing us recently. While this theme is, of course, very universal and very across the time, it seems like a certain cultural force is driving it more towards men a lot more these days. There is a good type of isolation, I think. I definitely have felt overwhelmed from being around people sometimes. In fact, as I'm sitting and writing and filming this, I'm completely alone, yet I feel pretty connected with everyone, more so than if I was in the same room with 50 people. I'm gonna talk about this theme a bit later throughout the video, but oddly enough though, I feel like the very advice that we're given is the exact same driver of this sense of isolation, bad type of isolation that we feel. A significant amount, I think, actually comes from people that are trying to be helpful by saying that we should be more dutiful, we should have purpose and grind and hustle and try anything to improve our status in some manner, make more money, get fitter, do anything you can to get ahead or to even just better yourself. Always working harder and harder and harder. I think if we take a moment to just pause, you could see how even the best intentioned advice here easily lead to our isolation, right? And even the most positively purpose-driven thing, right? Like I need to work harder in my studies or be better at climbing or be better at dancing or have a better job. There's this impending feeling of doom that kind of arises from it. It's this feeling that there is a competition with other people and ourselves as well. And those around me are only just holding me back from that goal. Or it's my responsibility to first be good before I could even earn the friendship and love of others. These are both very common thought patterns in my headspace, especially when I'm feeling a sense of emptiness and bitterness. And so I think how I started was by incorporating a sense of lightness and playfulness into every disciplined routine that I partake in. And it's been a complete life changer for me since very long ago. I think this type of practice merges everything together and really integrates those around you properly into your life without it being overbearing. And here's the thing, I don't know if I'm getting as much as I could be getting done with this type of mindset. Maybe I'm less productive than I need to be. But I do know that if I follow this hard work model, I will definitely burn out eventually. It's just inevitable. Even the hardest worker that you could think of right now probably has talked about this. And I really do believe that this is the difference between the greatest and the good. And I'm just using these as a conventional way of making a point. I don't actually believe that those two categories really define people. People that we glorify, like athletes, are probably all taking like 10,000 shots a day or practicing for hours and hours with their routine. Every musician is practicing their thing all the time. Every elite mathematician is probably spending their time non-stop just thinking about math problems. And the funny thing is that there's actually a lot of people that fall under this category of repeating things until they're good at it. Even the most seemingly mundane people, like people that are working in corporate settings, which is probably a lot of us, they are repeating the same skills over and over again. We just tend to glorify it less for some reason. But that law of averageness probably applies to all settings. I think the real question is that what makes certain musicians stand out? What makes certain athletes stand out? And that answer, I don't think ever comes down to just hard work. I think it truly is akin to something more like authenticity. In fact, I'd actually make a case that even the people that we don't consider are doing productive things for society are practicing something all the time. The mindless scrolling, the mindless binge drinkers or gamers, whatever it may be, they are still practicing something in some manner. We are all practicing something in some manner. You may not deem them as hard work, but you'd be surprised to see how much effort some of these people are putting into to sustain this lifestyle, even compared to like professional athletes. It is not easy to game for 12 hours a day. It really is not. It is not easy to pretend to have a functioning day-to-day living while being a binge drinker and getting hammered every time. I swear, I am not speaking from experience, but this is something I've observed. And even when you're doing something completely neutral, like nothing, try doing nothing for 12 hours. It is very difficult. And that is also a practice. And I think all of these mentalities have one thing in common. They're designed in some manner to separate us from others, maybe even more importantly, from our own sense of self-awareness. Is there a reason why you're bodybuilding and eating like 150 grams of protein a day for self-expression? Or is it simply to outcompete others and gain attention? Even though it may seem healthy, is it any different from people that destroy their life to see how much they could get away with? That's still a competitive behavior, right? In fact, I'd argue that the most highly functioning addicts that I've met in my own life are kind of like this. They're trying to prove in some sense that they're more elite than others. Even when they mess up all the time, they can still kind of outcompete themselves, basically competing for redemption from the shame and loss that they may feel. And in fact, I'd argue that some of the most competitive winners that we've met seem to always have some sort of gambling habit. And so I did mention there is something called the connection with your own sense of awareness and yourself. I mentioned earlier that there are times when I'm alone and I feel connected with others. Like when I'm writing this and I'm speaking about this. I do feel like I'm not competing with others. This is because I think in some manner, these activities are designed for expressiveness and self-understanding. And to be honest, I do spend hours running and practicing, working out and studying and reading and learning things that seem really challenging. And honestly, I may feel a sense of internal struggle on doing that. It might feel like a grind in some sense. It never stays in that place for majority of the time. And when I do go through these experiences, there's something to be gained from it. Something beyond just competing with others. Some sort of like an authentic, real experience of self-understanding. In fact, I do strongly believe that we can work hard while being around people and having fun with them and learning about them. In fact, I think it's our obligation in life to figure out those two things. It's been done by many people. Why not you? I think some of us have to go with this episode of chasing glory or running away from our problems or grinding or hustling to realize that they really are the same thing in the end. If we don't figure that out though, I think we are guaranteed a life of suffering but without reward. Burnout and health problems will be the least of our worries. This type of isolated hard work will make us completely asleep in some sense. We might even get the goal that we wanted, to be in the highest peak of what we wanted to achieve, to be away from others. Yet, when I do get there though, I don't think the person that's there is even me anymore. It's some sort of mutated, separated version of me that doesn't even exist. I can't recognize the person that made that goal. Me personally, I don't wanna live like that. At the end of the day, we're always going to have problems. I myself, for example, I have stuttered like 50 times in one sentence I'm trying to read out loud, right? I'm oscillating between sending 50 reels a day, overeating and training and working out to compensate for everything. And the cycle's always up and down. Like there's sometimes when I'm locked in and sometimes when I'm not. And I do think that in some ways, these type of behavior and flaws are not really worked upon, but just replaced by other things, right? Like I'm always going to be addicted to something. If it's not scrolling reels, it's like, I don't know, like watching Let's Play or something. I don't know. The cycle is always up and down. But the point is that if we replace these behaviors blindly, just for the sake of hard work, then I think we certainly lead ourselves to isolation. Instead, I think if we truly see our faults, our inability to see our wholeness, and to see the same in others, I think we would live a really enriching life, to be honest. After all, our faults will always connect us in some manner. And it's honestly kind of funny when you share your problems out loud, because they're not all that serious, but they're also still probably ruining your life. And so I don't think that we should ever come at a self-improvement from the perspective of trying to get rid of our shame and guilt for something that we're not supposed to be doing. It will be a tale that we change endlessly. And I actually do think we could get rid of that sense of shame and guilt. But if not, at least we could chase that tail while having fun with others.